today. I now welcome Climate Justice Union to give evidence today. If you'd like to come forward. For the Hansard record, would you please all state your name and capacity in which you appear before the committee? We'll start with you, Ms Parkin.
Yeah, my name's Jayla Parkin. Is that what you said, this bit? Yeah, local resident, and I work for Climate Justice Union and have done for a few years.
Excellent.
I'm Jamie Yallop-Ferrin. I'm the co-convener of the Climate Justice Union, and I've been working with the Collie elders and the community for over 5 years now.
Thank you.
And I'm Associate Professor Naomi Godden from Edith Cowan University's Centre for People, Place and Planet, and I've been working with the Collie community for 3 years.
Thank you. This hearing is a legal proceeding of the Parliament. The giving of false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as a contempt of Parliament. The evidence given today will be recorded by Hansard and attracts parliamentary privilege. Before I invite you to make a brief opening statement, let me proceed to discussions. Would you please state if you are a current or former member of a political party or a union or an investor in the renewable or nuclear industries? We'll start with Ms Parker.
Current member for Climate Justice Union.
Which is not an industrial union.
Yep.
Yeah, so member of
Same as well, yep.
Yeah.
Climate Justice Union.
I'm a member of the NTU
Yep. Thank
and
you.
also a member of the Australian Greens.
Thank you.
And I'm a member of the SDA.
Okay, excellent. Yep, thank you. I now invite you to make a brief opening statement before we proceed to questions.
Kayan na court. Nala kadach woman were Kanyang Yungam were Balavan more Duralak, Kongulak, Boyalak were Marawarak. Nala kadach Nedanga were Bridia. Kalyakul were Ye. Nijabuja Yungabuja. Kurakura your way. Kurakura Ye were Kalyakul. Nala kadach Nangangadach Wago. Nyang court Modich Knitting Wilman Buja. Nalak Karajan were Jinaning were Karajan and Karajan. So hello everyone, I want to begin by paying our deep respect to the Wilman and Kanyang peoples and their families to the north, the south, the east and the west. And we particularly extend this respect to the ancestors and elders that are here today. This place always has been and always will be Nyungar country. We also want to acknowledge the Nangangadach Wago, the hairy-faced snake and the creator of all waterways within this Buja of the Wilman freshwater people. And as visitors here, we commit to deeply listening and learning, paying attention and caring. As I mentioned, my name's Jamie and I've been working with the elders and the Collie residents for about 5 years on the Just Transition. We also were going to have Kira Diwa with us today, but unfortunately her young son yesterday had a bit of an accident and so he's fine, but they're unable to be with us, but she wanted to pass on her regards. For the past 5 years, the Climate Justice Union and our colleagues have been supporting Collie elders and residents to participate in the decisions and planning surrounding the closure of coal mining and energy generation and what comes next, including preparing for the impacts of climate change. We've facilitated workshops, surveys, discussions and public events. Together we've written a report about what the community values and wants prioritised. We have copies for all of you. And what they want prioritised in the transition and in the coming years. The Collie community have identified 7 key priorities. These are: we need to look after and protect Buja, the river and the forests, and learn from traditional custodians who've taken care of this place for millennia. We need to listen to Nyungar people and ensure they're involved in decision-making about their own country. Anything that happens in Collie, whether that's new economic activity or social activity, must strengthen our community. We have a strong community spirit and want to keep that. Everyone needs to know that they're included in what's happening and can be a part of the decisions that affect them. This involvement needs to be accessible, fair and transparent. Number 4, we need good, meaningful and secure jobs with decent wages, conditions and support for all workers, with young people knowing that there's a future for them. Number 5, we need to prioritise and secure quality, accessible and affordable education and training opportunities for community members of all ages and all diversities. Number 6, we need to ensure Collie and our community can provide for people's basic needs, their health, education, safety, employment and well-being, and in the short and long term. And finally, number 7, Collie needs to do all it can to address climate change, reduce our climate pollution, prepare for increased extreme events, and support people to cope with the challenges and difficulties that may come. It's clear that the proposal to build and house nuclear reactors and their associated waste materials in Collie do not fulfil these priorities. Those who are here today and those who we've been working with for the past 5 years are clear. They do not want and will not allow a nuclear reactor to be built in Collie.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Parkin? No? That's good.
We'd like to table a report for each of the members.
Just pass that to the Secretariat. She'll... If we could get an emailed copy through as well, that'd be great.
Sure.
Soft copy, please. Do you have anything to add to the opening statement?
No.
No, thank you. We'll start off with the Deputy Chair, Mr. O'Brien.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your opening statement. Thanks for being here today. Also, thanks for you mentioning the 7 priority areas. As part of the Coalition's plan looking at nuclear energy, we are looking at a community engagement process which would go for around about 2.5 years to make sure that any questions, any issues raised by the local community is addressed. The community can trigger reports and they can be done not by politicians but by the independent experts. We're also looking at a regional deal which might cover transport infrastructure, community infrastructure and so forth. A lot of your 7 priorities went to the importance of inclusion, of looking after the community, opportunities and so forth. If we were to engage with a regional deal, what do you think the tangible priorities that you would like to see delivered here locally, what should they be?
I think our 7 priorities speak to them really clearly. We know that we need, of course, energy is required and the community is very aware of that, but it needs to be renewable energy and it needs to be backed up with batteries and storage. We also need healthcare, we need affordable housing, we need transport, we need all of those things. And we also need not only good, secure jobs in industry and heavy manufacturing, but we also need low carbon jobs. So we need more childcare, we need more healthcare in the local region. So all of those things, but again, they're all actually very explicitly laid out in this report. And we've done the surveys, we've had the yarns and conversations, and we've actually checked them with everybody within the community, and there's nothing in this report that gets contested when we're talking to people. So I think basically those 7 priorities are those priorities that we want. But ultimately it's about taking care of this place now and into future generations.
So on the...
sorry, can I just...
Yeah, go ahead, of
add
course.
anything, Jayla?
Yeah, just another big thing that the community is looking for is like the mental health side of it as well. So, this whole thing's about the community coming together and feeling like they're not alone, but the mental health side of things is really lacking here in Collie. So that's something
Right. In terms of the services and so
services,
forth.
everything. Like I personally have, needed mental health services, and you cannot access any here in Collie.
Is that right?
Yeah, got to go to Bunbury for pretty much everything. So it's insane. And like 45 minutes into the centre of Bunbury, single mum when you're by yourself is, it's not achievable. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I take your position on nuclear energy. You've made that clear. But just on looking at those priorities for the community, if the Coalition were to win the next election and engage with the community, which is what our plan is, to make sure that we would be negotiating tangible outcomes through a deal, would that be something you think that you and the community would engage with?
I can't speak on behalf of the community. They will be able to do that themselves. What I do know is that the community will absolutely be participating in those processes.
Okay, good.
And I'm also really clear that the community has made it very clear that they won't be doing a deal to get those services at the expense of nuclear energy. So the community for about 5 years now has been prosecuting a case that these are the services that this community needs and deserves. They will continue to prosecute that argument regardless of the deals that are offered or the conversations. So, and in a moment you're going to hear from elders. The Climate Justice Union and our colleagues at ECU and others, we always prioritise the perspectives of the elders in town. And so the elders have also been very clear to us about what they want, how they need it, and how it needs to be delivered. And so absolutely we'd be a part of that journey.
So if you're not, thank you, and if you feel as though you're not receiving the services or you know, other things that fall beneath the 7 priorities, why is that? I mean, the community is currently in a transition. I mean, there's no secret about the amount of jobs that will be lost as coal plants close, as coal mining closes. I mean, you're talking about thousands.
Yep.
That must be, once you add in the mining and so forth, it's not just a couple of hundred, I would have thought.
1,200.
Thank you.
And so, are you confident that the way things are now, it's working?
If we, keep going along with how it has been working, like, actually talking to community and speaking with them and asking them what they want, getting the Jobs and Skills Centre, doing all the courses and upskilling and stuff like that, I think it's making a huge impact. And the difference between the way some people work with people in Collie and the way we work with, people in Collie is actually communication. So come and speak to us, come and ask us what we want. Like, don't come to Collie and tell people in Collie what they want. Like, I think it's really important. You've got to engage with people in town, and
Yeah, and that's
huge.
No, that's really good feedback for us, and I'm glad, especially given our 2.5-year community engagement process, hopefully would be facilitating just that.
Is it okay if I just add to that first,
Of course,
Chair?
please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think going to how it's already working at the moment, the process that we've been participating in has been a parallel process to the formal Just Transitions Working Group. So Climate Justice Union started here in 2019, working with the unions and other kind of organisations that were working around transition in Collie. But the work that we've done has been quite distinct from the formal process. So the formal process has been very much focused on the workers in the industry and the skills within the industry. What we've really focused on is those people that are going to be impacted by this transition but don't currently work in that industry. So whilst some of our people that we've been working with are miners, they're truck drivers on the mine, they might be working in the energy plant, all of those things, we've also been working with single mums or with people with disabilities or people that have been experiencing homelessness and things like that, because we know that when you have such a significant economic change in a community, the ripples go throughout that community. And so when you take a much broader perspective, there are incredible opportunities for turning this situation into something that is really robust and really extraordinary for this local community. Has the community been heard yet? Not fully. Absolutely not. And maybe Naomi can go into some of that information, because we've done some recent analysis on where money's going and how it's been decided upon and all of those things. I understand that a lot of what's been happening so far has been because the state government's been trying to really lock in big industry, but unfortunately taking a very narrow economic frame has left us in a situation where some people are continuing to be left out. Our work is to make sure that that doesn't happen, and recently we've had kind of recognition from people within the formal process that they will be collaborating more effectively with us so that we can be integrating what we've been doing, and instead of them being parallel processes, they can be supportive processes going forward.
So the processes that we've had with the community over the past 3 years have been open discussions and dialogue about the transition. So asking community members what's important to them in their community, what do they love about this place, what's important to them for their families and for their futures. What are the changes that they're experiencing as a community, both the economic transition changes and climate change more generally. What's currently in place in the community to support them through those changes, and what the needs are for them to be able to, live a flourishing life through those changes that occur. So these open questions are not leading questions. We're not asking them, do they agree or disagree with a particular approach? Rather, it's an open question forum for people to share what they think is important for them and their families' futures in the community. And so that's where this report obviously details a lot of those findings. We take a holistic approach to understanding transition, as Jamie has said. We're really thinking about transition as a whole of community opportunity, and that these economic and social changes need to have the infrastructure and support around them for all community members to meet their human rights, for country and for place to flourish and to improve. And so I guess I would be encouraging around the community consultation process to come with the same openness. This openness has allowed people to really speak their own truth about what's important to them. And what's come through so significantly again and again is that the community wants their right to free, prior, informed and continuing consent about any decisions that are made about their town. And so this coming in, I guess, with a particular agenda makes that conversation quite difficult, because when we had these discussions with community about what was important to them, nuclear energy didn't come up. Rather, what was important to them was country and caring for country, so Budja, caring for place, and for country to be enhanced and improved, for community to meet all of their human rights, and for those social injustices that currently exist to be enhanced and improved, and for the long term of community to be able to not just survive but thrive through both economic and climate changes.
Thank you.
Something quickly to add on to that, sorry. I think it's really important to know that before, the coal mines and stuff are going to shut down, and that Collie wasn't perfect as a whole in general anyway. There was a lot of people that were already left behind in the community that lacked, the support and the skills and everything else. If you weren't in the mining, you weren't in the mining. That was it. So I feel like this is a time that's really, really important to be able to bring the whole community together and let them know that it's not just the mine workers that are going to be looked after in the transition, it's everyone that's been left out and left behind, for years and years and years. So,
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr O'Brien. Ms Mascarenhas.
Thank you so much for your testimony today, and particularly as a single mum, thank you for prioritising the time. I see this as a moment in time where we are at a crossroads, and one of the things that I'm going to say wasn't on my radar is the option of nuclear power as a option for Collie. When you guys heard the announcement, I'm curious to know on whether you guys were consulted prior to the announcement, and whether you know if anyone else in the Collie township was consulted.
There was no consultation. There was no, this is what we're thinking about doing. What do you guys think? It's on the cards. It was just like, here's a bombshell on our social media. Like, you should see our chat that we've got on Facebook. It's just, we're like, what the hell is this? This is not happening.
Yeah. And so what was some of the feedback?
Can I swear in here? What the actual fuck? How does fuck off sound?
I found out first of all, because the reason I'm laughing is because we put out a statement that literally said hell to the effing no, which was pretty much the sentiment that the people we've been working with closely in Collie. And when I say the people we're working with, I want to be really clear. When we're working with people, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're paid organisers or professional organisers, right? Like, we've actually done the work to support people in Collie to participate in this work with whatever it is that they need to be able to participate. So, for example, it's school holidays. There's no childcare right now. So that's my kid in the back kind of running a creche. But actually, that's also how we run our meetings. We run them at the family centre. We provide a creche. We organise for people to be able to get there. We provide remuneration if that's needed. We provide transport if that's needed. Everybody's paid to do all of those things. And we organise via social messenger at like 9:30 when the kids are in bed. Like, and so that was literally the text message. I was like, hey guys, this is the announcement. What do you think? Elders, jailer, local community members, everybody was just like, hell no. And also there was a very clear understanding that it was quite, it seemed to be quite a cynical move and a distraction from the momentum that we'd already been creating in town. And I have to say that this has been an incredible burden on ourselves as a small organisation, but also the community that is risking distracting us from the incredibly important work that we've been doing for 5 years, which is why we're just like, look at this. We've done the work that people are talking about, and why we keep referring back to this, because that's the work we wanted to do and we didn't want to be distracted. So, yeah, no conversations, no engagement.
So with that momentum that you were talking about, what do you see as the vision that you're working towards? And the second part to that question is, you use the term distraction. Do you see this proposal announcement as a distraction, so that will distract investment in renewable energy and prolong investment in fossil fuels?
Whether it was meant as a distraction or whether that's just the effect of it, it is distracting from the work that we need to do. I think, we've been talking to people that are part of the Chamber of Commerce, for example. We're talking to people that are running businesses here, and they're kind of like now going, hang on a second, we knew the journey we were on. There was a progression that we were doing. What does that now mean? What does that now mean for our workers? What does that now mean for the investment choices we were going to make? So whether it was deliberate a distraction or an accidental distraction, it has been a distraction. And I think also there's anyone that's been a part of Collie knows that Collie's been a political football for decades, right? So that's why when we work here, we work very slowly, very carefully, and we have to make sure that everybody knows. I remember Greg Busson here from the Miners' Union, he turned around and said at one of our workshops, he said, there's a bus and we need to make sure everybody's on that bus and everyone gets to say in where that bus is going. And that's the work that we've been making sure that we do. I can't remember your question, I got distracted and I know we need to move on, but she's much better at that.
So your first question was around the vision that we're working towards.
Oh, good.
So the state government obviously has a just transition plan for Collie, 2029 to be shutting down all coal-fired power stations. We are committed in the long haul to working alongside the community through those changes. And the vision that's clearly spelt out by the community in this report is how they want that transition to unfold in a way that leaves no one and leaves no budger behind. And so this is, I guess, our work as a collective and working in partnership with communities to ensure that issues like affordable housing, like healthcare, like caring for country, like jobs for everyone, like, strong and clear educational pathways for young people, that they are all embedded in the transition process. And we have the relationships, and we've built those relationships over time with folks that are involved in the formal level with the transition to enable those voices to be heard into that process.
I think the other thing to add, though, as far as the vision, is that that level of consultation and engagement takes resourcing. It takes trust. It takes... very early on, we realised that when we were working with elders, these elders, they're precious, right? They're our politicians. They're asked to go to every single meeting, to have every single conversation, to give consent for all sorts of things. If we don't have young people working with them and supporting them, often they have no idea which meeting they've just walked into because modulars like me all look the same. So we need to make sure that the support is there for equitable engagement. People need free, prior and informed consent, not just, we had a forum, did you turn up, did you not turn up, what do you think about what we're saying? It actually needs to include the education, the upskilling, the conversations, and it needs to be resourced. And if we're holding things during the day, for example, are we covering people's wages when they're missing a day's work? Are we ensuring that they're actually equitably able to engage? Because what we've found is most of the time, it's only those people that are in professional roles that can participate in these kind of formal processes unless we deliberately disrupt those processes, which is, of course, what we've been doing. But that takes time, money and resources, and we need to make sure that that's done really well.
I also have to add to that. I came into this project as just an average modular. I had no idea of any of this sort of stuff, how any of it worked, nothing like that. And I've since found out, there's so much that goes into it, so much. Sometimes we have meetings at night time, to accommodate people that can't get there during the day. I'm quite dyslexic, so understanding things and taking things in, it takes a little bit. I've got to reread it and stuff like that. And the way that we work accommodates that. And I know I'm not the only one. There's other mums there that have got more kids than I do, and, people that don't have cars, they don't have licenses, they can't just get in the car and drive down to these things. They've got parents, they've got grandparents that they're looking after, they're sick themselves, so it doesn't just take one meeting, this is what we're doing. And in the 3.5 years that I've been involved, since my daughter was born, we're on such a roll. what sort of normal person can say, yeah, I co-authored a book? Like, how cool is that? And then there was all these other things that we wanted to do and had coming, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, this nuclear bomb, and now it's like, what the fuck is going on? You know, like, we just want to get back on track, and I'm doing a lot of the research for these guys for the nuclear, and, like, to be honest, I'm over it. I'm like, this is just ridiculous.
Thank you, Ms Mascarenas. Dr Ryan.
Okay.
She's online. Yeah. Dr Ryan.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Sorry, technical issues. I'm sorry I can't be with you. I'm in Perth, but I was just looking at your paper. It's really instructive. Thank you. Can I ask you, obviously you have a very strong connection to country. Would it be fair to say that you'd have real concerns about the potential impact of nuclear facilities on the aquifers around Collie?
Absolutely. We're going to be followed in a moment by elders and Noongar folk, so it's more appropriate, I think, that they can speak around those concerns. From our own perspective, we actually have concerns around any large industry in Collie as far as its impact on the waterways here and on its impact on the forest. And also, we have to remember that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for climate change. And so the Northern Jarrah forests are one of the most vulnerable ecosystems to climate change. They're drying out at an incredible state, and so we actually risk the failure of entire ecosystems. And so as far as our transition work and as far as what's required, it's not only to ensure that we don't continue to engage in activity here that's harmful to country, we actually need to be restoring and healing country. And the best way to do that, and the only way to do that, is to follow those that have been here for the longest of time. So that's what we need to do, and we need to resource that well. But the impacts of climate can be seen very, very clearly here. It is very, very disappointing. Disappointing, that's such an understatement. It's very distressing for community and for elders to go into country and to go into the forest, for example, to go to a site that has been important for whether it's for 10 years or generations, and to see it being dried and impacted by climate change. So I think, our concerns run very deep, both from let's not cause more harm, but also let's do everything we can to restore the harm that we've already caused.
When we were conducting the community workshops, we did a social mapping process. So for those that don't know, a social mapping process is where you literally lay out big pieces of butcher's paper on the table and you ask people to map, to draw their community, and then to overlay that with noting places of significance or issues that they see and so forth. In every single map and every discussion, the Collie River was at the centre. It featured so significantly. People continually talked about the importance of the river, of the waterways, for their community, for wellbeing, for culture, for spirituality. And I'm talking both Aboriginal community members and non-Aboriginal community members. So the significance of water in this community is it cannot in any way be denied. I want to read something from the report that just accentuates that. Then, of course, we'll hear from the elders later. Wilman elders explained the spiritual and cultural significance of Minninup on the Collie River. That, quote, if we haven't got the water, we haven't got a survival kit, unquote. They then say, the River Mardalup means a lot to us because our ancestors, they lived all along the river. So, of course, it's important to us. It's recreational, it's food source, spiritual, very spiritual, wellness and wellbeing. So this just came through so continuously and significantly in our research. And again, not only talking about what people find important in the community, but what they want to do to strengthen their community. The narrative that continued the whole way through and continues in discussion is how can we continue to care for and improve the waterways of this community, and including what does it look like for jobs. So there's actually an extraordinary resource and opportunity to build an entire industry in this community around caring for budja and caring for those waterways. That can be the resource.
Thank you. I have one more question, if I may, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you. There's a lot of your report refers repeatedly to a just transition and the importance of that. Can you give us an idea of the timing of that? I mean, one of the concerns many of us have about nuclear is that the fact that it would take a long time, likely at least 10 or 15 years, to roll out an effective nuclear industry in Australia. Is that something that your community has time for, do you think, or do you think you need more rapid action on finding people new jobs and new employment within the community?
Yeah, I can answer that. We don't have time to wait, and we're not going to wait for nuclear at all. It's not even a question about it. The damage has been done, and as I said before, people have already been left behind with coal mining, and yeah, we need to get our butts into gear and just fix it now, basically.
And I think also, just to underline that as well, from my perspective, a just transition kind of indicates that maybe there was justice in the first place. And I think what we're also really clear on is that there's incredible injustice, not only in Collie, but actually throughout our regions. I don't think the story of there not being enough mental health services or not enough social housing, I don't think that's unique to Collie. I think that is something that many regional communities are dealing with. And so what we're really clear on is that we actually need to be addressing those issues at an incredible pace, but we cannot do it at the expense of country or community.
So the WA government's Just Transition Plan was released in 2020. So we're 4 years into that plan, and it has a goal towards 2029. The resourcing so far that has been put formally into the transition is $662 million, and there has been already significant millions of dollars allocated out to new industries and new businesses, new infrastructure for the community and so on. This alternative pathway towards nuclear is deeply unjust for a community that is already grappling with the uncertainty of change. As they are going through this change, community are obviously wanting to make sure that their rights are understood and acknowledged and addressed, that they are heard in the process, and that the responses that are implemented address the deep and extraordinary, issues of inequality throughout the community. And so the introduction of a nuclear pathway is a real schism in this process, and the town that's already going through quite a lot of uncertainty and really trying to reckon with that. And so I would be arguing, based on the research and based on what community are saying to us, is that to bring in another pathway and to be dividing community over that discussion and over that debate is actually very unfair for a town that's already grappling with this quite deeply.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Mr. Kennedy.
Does the community feel, congratulations on your report, by the way. I've only just started flicking through, but it seems very comprehensive. But does the community feel, do you feel you've had sufficient information to come to a stance on nuclear?
So we can all answer that separately. So I'll answer that on behalf of the Climate Justice Union. So over 10 years ago, I was participating in some work around climate, and we were doing the analysis then around the viable solutions and what the options were. And it was... Hang on, baby, let me talk. And it was really clear, we expected the nuclear industry to make a pitch for being the solution for climate. And so we did the work. We did the research, we had the conversations, we gathered the experts, we did all of that work. Putting aside, which I would never put aside, but putting aside the intentions of traditional custodians that have been fighting to keep uranium in the ground and fighting that industry for decades, when you look at it, there is no such thing as carbon emission-free nuclear power. It's not a situation. It's not a low-emission kind of energy source. It's not suitable for Collie. It's not required for the grid that we have here. It's not appropriate on the timeline. So I'll just finish.
Okay, sure.
So it's actually. So did we have the information? Did the community have the information? The community hasn't had sufficient information into the community once the announcement was made, although we have brought experts into the community and been working with folks.
Yes.
And we also heard from the state government and Synergy as well around the requirements of the grid. So for us, it's a case of we did the work a really long time ago. We know that it's an insufficient solution for what we need. And so for us, there isn't actually any new information that would be able to kind of change our mind on that. But the community can respond to those things themselves. Jayla obviously needs to just take care of Peyton for a moment, but Naomi?
But just a follow-up question, and sorry we're a bit short on time. When you said you did the work, is that work in this document, or where's that work embodied?
Oh, no,
and
that work...
Could you table that as well?
Oh, so that work is not in... I can totally take that on notice. It's not in that report because nuclear wasn't on the agenda and it never came up in any of our conversations.
So the work you did, what was that embodied in?
The nuclear stuff that we did?
Yeah.
So that was work that, as people that have been working in climate for a long time, we participated with a lot of people that worked in nuclear industry.
Did it culminate in a report of some sort or anything?
There are reports available, absolutely. So
the work you did on Collie, the work you were just referring to.
Oh, no, I was referring to whether or not nuclear was a solution for the climate issues and for climate and for energy. And what I'm saying is the work that we did on that was very clear that it was not an adequate solution.
For Collie or for where?
For anywhere on this continent.
For Australia?
Yeah.
And what was the report? What did that work? I'm just trying to understand. Was it a report you published, or?
Oh, no. There were heaps of reports. I'm not a nuclear physicist.
Yes.
I took advice and guidance, as I'm assuming you are, from people that actually are specialists in that area. I can take it on notice and bring those resources for you.
And that's the only reason I'm pushing you a little bit, because we have had a bunch of nuclear power plant operators, nuclear scientists, the former chief scientist of Adelaide telling us it's safe. We've had a report showing 4 of the 5 fastest decarbonisations in the world were nuclear. We've also had reports saying, and I noticed on page 33, I think there's about 65% of people who are either severely or moderately concerned about jobs. We've got a lot of evidence from nuclear that it pays 50% more than renewables.
Okay, so again...
Sorry, I'll ask you a question.
Okay,
if that's
sure.
okay.
Can we get one question?
Yep, sure.
We are running out of time.
Last question, Chair. Last question. Given the Coalition's announcement was to engage these 7 communities on 2.5 years, if some of the community feels like they may not have enough information, wouldn't it be a good thing then to bring up, if we haven't looked at it for 10 years, all that information, all the evidence we've heard from those nuclear scientists, from those people, to then share that with the community in a process maybe like you've engaged with here, and then allow the community to see that information to make a decision? And if not, why not?
So we have been engaging with people in a very, very quick timeline in preparation for this, and to ensure that the elders had the information they needed to make free, prior and informed consent around this, or to have their say on this, because we cannot act outside of the intentions and we cannot act outside of what the elders tell us. Right? We just can't do that from a cultural perspective. So we have done the work to get the latest. We have actually
on nuclear?
We have been looking at that stuff. We haven't done that process.
Where is it in the report?
You're being deliberately problematic right now, sir.
I'm just challenging, have you done it, or should we engage in this 2.5 year process? Because that's the question I just asked. Should we engage in that?
So should we engage in it?
Or not?
If we can financially resource this community to get on with what it wants to do, to ensure that the 7 priorities that the Collie community have articulated are fulfilled, and additionally have those conversations so that some people feel comfortable and can go through those processes to then say no, which is what they would say because it is an insufficient energy resource at this time in a changing climate, then sure. But I think we all know that we can't be in 2 places at once. And so for us to actually spend 2.5 years having a conversation around something that has no consent, will not garner consent from a significant part of the community, I feel it's disingenuous. And as Naomi said, it's an unjust proposal for this community.
Okay.
Also, it was kind of just told that that's what was being done. No one really asked, or, you can't just tell a community, this is what we're going to do for you, this is what you guys are having, and whether you like it or not, you just have to deal with it. That's what's being told. So for them to then come in and say that there's...
But also, you've been really clear that regardless of what the community wants, you'll veto anyway and do what you want. So,
so we just...
That's not correct.
Oh, that's been quoted many times, so maybe...
It's not correct, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's great. We look forward to that. That's really great.
So can I speak to, as someone who's a specialist in community participation, I want to speak to different levels of participation. So there's quite an old ladder of participation, actually, which is still used around the world as a way of understanding how communities are engaged and involved in decision making. At its lowest rung is what we call manipulation, which is where a decision is made and people are coerced to engage with or agree with this decision. We move up to information sharing. So this is what has been decided, this is how you will be affected by this. We then move up to some forms of discussion, not really dialogue, but rather, what do you think? So we consult with you. What do you think? All right, we will take your perspectives on board. We may or may not change our position based on this. Then we go further up the rungs to where we're actually talking about community self-determination, where communities decide what's important for them and they lead the decision-making around that. Now, when we talk about consent, consent can be given and consent can be withdrawn. So even in a 2.5-year conversation, and I would be urging going beyond conversation to actually that citizen control or self-determination rung of participation, that process needs to actually allow for people that they may arrive at a position of consent or not consent, and that they may well change their mind, and that the consent at any point into the future can be withdrawn. Now, this is really problematic when we have short time frames and we have agendas that are political and that are imposed upon communities without their engagement and without their initial consent in the first place. This dialogue around nuclear has not happened yet, and certainly the proposal was launched onto the community without any of these of this kind of level of dialogue that's required. So I would be really urging the government to be, this proposal, when it comes from the Liberal Party, to be really coming from a place of community consent, and that consent can be withdrawn, and that if consent is withdrawn, that is respected. At the moment, the conversation does not seem to reflect that.
And people are scared.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Kennedy.
People are
Mr
very
Burnell.
scared.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for providing evidence today, and thank you to the broader community in the room. It's a fantastic turnout here. I just wanted to quickly follow on from Ms Mascarenhas's line of questioning earlier around consultation prior to the announcement nearly 7 months ago to the day. Since the announcement on the 19th of June, has there been any direct consultation with the community from the Coalition regarding their proposed plan?
So, not for the broader community. So there was, so I'm aware that Mr Dutton and others had a conversation with the Shire Council and the councillors. I'm aware that Nuclear for Australia came to town to have an event that Rick Wilson was also attending, and many others. A number of us were actually denied entrance to that, including myself and also one of Stevie, who's about to present, who's one of the local Aboriginal women here. So we were actually denied entrance into that event. When elders heard that Mr Dutton was in town, they actually did go to the council to seek an appointment or to seek discussion, and he drove away and would not engage with them. So not only has there not been adequate consultation or adequate engagement, when there have been opportunities for that, we literally had the door locked on us and security turned on us, and we were refused access into the venue, and they actually locked the door and barricaded the doors on the inside with tables to stop us from coming in. And so that's actually so far what the community experienced in Collie.
Wow. So I wasn't expecting that as a response.
Question, Mr.
I've got two, but
We're going to run out of time. So.
yeah, bear with me. So when Mr Dutton spoke with the council, has there been a subsequent town hall held by the council for the community to be able to be briefed in on what was discussed during that conversation?
Not that I'm aware of. There has been a public forum on energy. So the Collie Delivery Unit.
That was run by an independent body?
No, that was hosted by the state government, and it included the Synergy, and it included the local member, and it included kind of people that are formally part of the Energy Policy WA. So there's public servants that are working on the energy policy and the grid here in South West.
But that was not related to Dutton or anything at all. That
No.
was
Just my final question is around genuine consultation. Now, Collie's been slated for a small modular reactor. There's not a single small modular reactor in the developed world, in Western civilisation, that's demonstrated to be reliable for the production of energy to a grid. Do you think it's genuine to be having a conversation about a technology that's not been proven yet?
No.
for your
I
community?
don't think we're keen on being guinea pigs, to be honest. Like, you know, been providing power for long enough, like, why do we have to be the ones that have to test it out first if there's no. Yeah.
And I think also let's remember the level and the level of consultation and engagement that's already happened in Collie over the last decade or so to arrive at the point of a just transition from coal. Why would we want to put the community through the same elongated process of uncertainty again for a technology that is as yet untested?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today. If you've been asked to provide any additional information, including questions on notice, please forward it to the Secretariat by Friday the 10th of January 2025. Please note that responses to questions on notice will be published on the website as submissions to the inquiry. You'll be sent a copy of the transcript of your evidence to assist you with answering questions taken on notice today, and you'll have an opportunity to request corrections to transcription errors. Thank you very much for coming in today. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.